Ladies and gentlemen, we have a future member of Congress in our midst. There are 6 people who would like to be, who are vying for that position. We're going to hear from each and every one of them tonight, give you a chance to help make your decision. And I'm excited about everyone that's here. There are 756 people RSVP that they're coming to this event tonight. That's amazing. There are, as you know the story, that when we put out, we were hoping that the first room we had rented would work, and it filled up in 48 hours. So we had to double the size of the room. We couldn't go any less than double, but we're proud for everyone that's here and everyone that'll join us. Ladies and gentlemen, I will introduce to you 2 very professional folks who we have moderating and asking questions of our candidates tonight. They are Mr. Randy Evans, the national committee man for the Georgia Republican Party and Republican extraordinaire. He needs no introduction. He travels all over the world. If you're his friend on Facebook, and I'm sure if you're not, if you send him a friend request, you can be. He travels all over the world for our party. He and especially all over America. And I know he's been working on the details for the debates, for the presidential debates in 2016 in the last week or so. But we are proud that he's a resident of the 11th District. And also takes care of business here at home. Thank you, Randy, and we're glad to have you. No less a notoriety, maybe someone who many of you sat under his teaching at Kennesaw State. He's well known. He's an opinion maker. He is just the kind of person that we needed to make this debate round out at the moderator's table tonight. Dr. Kerwin Swin. Join me in welcoming Dr. Swin. And from now, we'll see our candidates and we'll begin to hear from them. And I will introduce them in reverse alphabetical order, because that's just one way to do it. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me as I call their names as they join me on this stage. And it will be your opportunity to whoop and holler and make all the noise you'd like when each candidate is introduced, and then when they're all introduced, and we'll do that. After that, I would ask you to hold your applause for the rest of the debate until closing statements, because if we give too much time for crowd reaction and applause, it'll take up the valuable time that we have to hear from our candidates. From the podium to my left, join me in welcoming Tricia Bradmore. At the next podium, join me in welcoming Colonel Larry Rosinski. Next, in the podium, join me in welcoming former State Senator Barry Loudermilk. Next, join me in welcoming State Representative Edward Lindsay. Next, please join me in welcoming Alan Levine. And finally, to the podium to my right, join me in welcoming former Congressman Bob Barr.
I can't even get the microphone turned on properly. That's very important. First of all, I want to join Scott in welcoming everyone. Scott has done a phenomenal job as the district chair. He's done a great job of putting this together, and I think we owe him a great round of applause for all of us. And I could tell you that having traveled the country, as many of you know, that there is no finer group of candidates for Congress than the group that you have before you, and we are indeed quite fortunate that one of them will become our representative in the United States House. And that's a great tribute to the quality of our district and of the folks who serve us. The very first part here is to allow each candidate an opportunity to introduce themselves. And so I guess we'll start here doing in alphabetical order, and we'll start with Bob Barr. Bob?
Thank you, Counselor. My name is Bob Barr, and I am running to represent the people of the great state of Georgia from the 11th District in the House of Representatives of the United States of America. The reason that I'm running is because our country, Reagan country, is in dire danger of becoming Obama country. And I vow and am committed to do absolutely everything in my power in the arena in Congress where I've served previously to make sure that that never, ever happens. Now, there are a lot of folks here this evening, and 5 other great candidates here on the podium with me. None of us in this room are the enemy. The enemy is in Washington. The enemy is those that we know. Harry Reid, Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama. They are the enemy, along with faceless bureaucrats all across this country, and we must do everything within our power to stop them in their tracks. Now, that is not to say that there are not differences. There are differences among the candidates here this evening. This is essentially a campaign between the want-to-dos and the have-done. I have served in the Congress. I have been in the arena. I have voted and worked to balance the budget and succeeded at that in cutting taxes and protecting our civil liberties. Send me back to Washington to complete that job that we started and move forward with. Previously, I asked for your vote for the 11th District. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am Alan Levine. I'm running for the 11th District, House of Representatives. I'm a naturalized, as you can hear. I'm a naturalized American citizen since 1975. The reason that I'm running for Congress is I see a massive dollar failure in about 4 years. Every time I see this flag here, it sends a shiver down my spine. I love this country, and I would not see it fail. I'm the only candidate that has concrete solutions to resolve our country's problems. I'm not one big for hyperbole. I'm big on providing solutions. I'm in the IT business. I've been in the IT business for about 30 years. My customers do not want me to share their pain, feel their pain. They want me to fix their problems. I can fix the problems. My website has nearly 200 articles on exactly what I plan to do and how I will resolve our country's problems. We have some very serious problems, and I do know how to fix them based on experience. So please visit my website, alanlevineforcongress.com, and I look forward to this debate. And I thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Ed Lindsay. I'm a state representative, and I've been for the last 3 terms a part of the House Majority Leadership in the Republican caucus in the State House. As part of that work, I have developed a solid reputation as a Georgia conservative who gets the job done. And folks, that's exactly what we need to send to Washington. In addition to that, and probably even more importantly, I'm a father and a husband. My wife, Elizabeth here, and I have been blessed with 3 sons, Harmon, Charlie, and Zach. When they graduated from high school and went off to college, we sent with them a simple prayer. The prayer was this: may you always remember that behind you is a family that loves you. Beside you is a God that will guide you. And before you are adventures and dangers that will amaze you. This simple prayer, in a nutshell, is what I'm all about. I am a father. I am a husband. I am a Republican. My family is my rock. My faith is my belief in God, which provides me with a compass. And most importantly, I am focused on the future. I look forward to this debate tonight. I look forward to talking to you about the issues. I look forward to earning your vote. Thank you very much.
Good evening, I'm Barry Loudermilk, and first let me thank you for being here. The fact that you're here tonight shows you care about our nation and our children's future. You know, I was born and raised not very far from where we're standing here tonight, but after I graduated high school, I took a job as a laborer with a construction company in Alaska. And while I was in Alaska, I also volunteered at a local church, ministering to underprivileged children. And while I was working in that ministry, I met a beautiful young lady by the name of Desiree. And just a couple months ago, we celebrated our 31st wedding anniversary. You know, after I finished working in Alaska, I followed in the footsteps of my father, who was served in the Army in World War II, and my brother, who served in Vietnam, and I joined the Air Force. And after 8 years of military service, I moved back to Georgia, where I started my own small business, which I've been running for the last 20 years. Today we have 3 beautiful children that we're extremely proud of, and we're especially proud that our oldest son and our daughter-in-law are giving us our first grandchild, which is due about the time of the election. You know, America has some serious challenges ahead of us. Challenges that are brought by big government, an overwhelming debt, and continual attacks upon our liberties, our freedoms, and the basic principles of faith, family, and freedom. But I know we can take America back, because I believe in American exceptionalism. I believe that we not only can take America back, we must take America back. The only reason I'm running for Congress is because our children and grandchildren deserve better than what we're passing on to them. God bless you.
Good evening. My name is Larry Rosinski. I am not a career politician. Ladies and gentlemen, my family is present today, and I'm very proud to tell you that that's the most important thing for all of us here. With 4 of my children present, my son-in-law, and oh yes, born on Reagan's birthday, my granddaughter, Riley. Ladies and gentlemen, every 2 to 4 to 6 years, you are disappointed. In my 30-year career, I've served in the U.S. military around the world. I've served in the U.S. State Department, familiar with foreign policy, and I'm familiar with why we want to keep America strong, because I've seen it all. We will keep America strong. We will do that together. And every 2 to 4, 6 years, when you're disappointed, disenfranchised, you've been looking for somebody to come along, take a hard look. Take a look at the rhetoric. Take a look at what they write. Do they write on the issues, or is it entertainment tonight, folks? The answer is, you know in your heart. You can put a sticker on your breast, but you can't put it on your heart. It has to touch your heart. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our time. This is our time to take it back. This is our time to send a message that we, the people in the 11th District, will will no more, we're taking enough. We will elect somebody, tested, trusted leadership, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm here today, I'm here before you, and we will take it back. And I want to serve as your next congressman. Help is on the way.
Thank you.
My name is Tricia Pridemore, and it's an honor to be with you all tonight. I want to thank Dr. Swint, as well as our Georgia National Committee and Randy Evans for moderating the event. I want to thank the 11th Congressional District of the Georgia Republican Party and the Cobb County Young Republicans for hosting us this evening. Many of you know me, and you know that my husband and I live here in Cobb County. You know that 2 decades ago, we built a small but successful software company. Through hard work and dedication, we were able to grow that business and create jobs right here in Cobb. I'm running for Congress because that American dream is slipping away. President Barack Obama's failed policies have stifled our economy. It's damaged our optimism. And this federal government has put up bureaucratic roadblocks to block our success. All the while, government spending continues to spiral out of control. Small businesses suffer, and economic growth is halted. I'm running for Congress to fight against big government, to fight against high taxes, to fight against out-of-control spending, and to fight against the failed policies of President Barack Obama. See, America is bigger than any one president. We can recover. We will rebound stronger. See, I'm fighting for free markets. I'm fighting for individual liberty. I'm fighting for American ideals. But most importantly, I'm fighting for you. Thank you.
Thank you. So now I get the privilege of asking the first question, and we will respond to the question. I would ask each of the candidates to respond in reverse alphabetical order, which means that we will begin with Ms. Pridemore and work our way toward Mr. Barr. When Newt Gingrich was elected in 1994 and became Speaker in 1995, he faced a daunting challenge, which was to balance the federal budget. And yet, through hard work and commitment, he was able to do that. We again face a situation where we have a federal debt that's completely out of control. Congressman Paul Ryan has offered an outline for a budget of how to reduce the budget. In what areas do you believe Congressman Ryan's plan goes far enough, and where does it not go far enough?
That's a great question. Congressman Ryan's plan is a slow spending cut plan, but it does cut spending. And I believe that there's a great deal of opportunity for us to cut spending. As somebody who's run a business, I know what it means to make payroll. I know what it means to be able to sign the front of a paycheck when sometimes I couldn't sign the back of one. I also understand that we have a great deal of bloat in our federal government. 61% of our federal government is made up of entitlement programs, of which in many cases we see anywhere between 30 and 42% that's made up of the administrative overhead costs alone. I think that there's a lot we can do to cut the fat, and I think that Congressman Ryan's plan does take it in a direction, but I believe that we can go further.
Thank you.
Congressman Ryan's plan does not include, what I would take further, is to also move for deficit is the fair tax. Take the burden off the American people. Go with the 16th Amendment. Go with the plan. 73 of the House members, 8 in the Senate have endorsed the fair tax. I believe that spending cuts need to take place across all of the agencies. Ryan's plan does go to the heart of the matter. However, regulations. We need to take a look at our regulations to make sure the burdens are taken off of the business and entrepreneurs. We need to lower our corporate tax down to 25%. We need to take a look at investing and in incentives for our entrepreneurs. Oh yes, when we're taking a look at these budget cuts, we need to make sure that the federal government doesn't spend beyond its means. Ladies and gentlemen, we need a constitutional amendment. We need to make sure that America has a balanced budget as you do in your homes.
You know, I applaud Representative Ryan for what he's doing with the budget. It is clear that he is trying to make go in the right direction of a balanced budget. However, history has proven that Congress, when it's left to itself, will not cut its own way of spending money or cut its own power. So we must have a constitutional amendment for a balanced budget. Now, he has a 10-year plan to get to a balanced budget, but it isn't real cuts in spending. It's cuts in the increases of spending, as we've seen so much. Now, if we have stability in the economy, then you can decrease the increase of spending because the GDP will catch up with you. But Congress has made no plans that the policies they've been passing have actually been hurting our economy. We have to bring confidence back into the economy. Some of the things that I think we need to be more aggressive in the cuts is cutting in some of the subsidies. The farm bill that was recently passed had very little to do with farming. It was mostly an increase in the food stamp program. You know, I grew up in a very low-income area south of Atlanta, and I had several friends that their families were on food stamps and welfare. And I remember that when my friends would tell me that, the parents would get upset because they were embarrassed. They were on it because it was a temporary solution. When we now advertise, come and get your food stamps, that's a problem with our society that has to be changed. But Congress is going to have to be more aggressive, and we're going to have to force a balanced budget amendment.
With all due respect to Congressman Ryan, I'd give him a do-over and an incomplete and send it back to him. The plan does not reduce or cut federal spending. It cuts the rate of increase in the federal spending. By contrast, those of us here in Georgia, and I've been in that room making those difficult cuts over the last 5 years. Here in Georgia, when we call a cut, we actually cut spending. As part of the House leadership in Georgia, I cut state spending, actually cut it by over 15% in order to balance the budget. We need to have that same kind of discipline on the federal level, and we waited over 30 years to get it. The first time that Congress considered a balanced budget amendment was in 1982. At that time, our federal debt was $1 trillion. Today, it's over $18 trillion. I agree that we need to have Congress take seriously this issue and get a balanced budget amendment. But I also believe that we and states need to take some initiative too. That's why, as a state representative, this year, I helped push through the Georgia House a proposed constitutional convention that will call a meeting of the states to put forth a balanced budget amendment. We need to open up the second front in order to get Congress to take seriously its responsibilities in passing that balanced budget amendment. We've got to move forward. We've got to actually make cuts in federal spending and not simply cut the rate of future increase. So therefore, I would send it back to Representative Bryan and say, try again.
The problem in Washington is that they're insane. The insanity is based on the belief that they can spend any amount of money into the distant future and nobody will object to it globally. Being from England, I have an international perspective. I follow international news every single day. And there will come a time, I estimate about 4 years, when our creditors from overseas who loan us immense amounts of money will stop. When that stops, our dollar will collapse. So my solution is not the mantra of continually cut, because everybody thinks about that, nothing happens. As you know, it's just hyperbole, it's just talking points. What I propose is growth to the GDP, such rapid growth to our gross domestic product that we will have full employment and we will actually have lower taxes, and then the big problems that we have today will just go away. If we have growth, then we will beat China at its own game. And how I propose to do that is very simple. A single bill. Being in the IT business, I look to solutions, not to problems. How do we get the outcome that we need? And the outcome that we need to solve all of our financial problems is very simple, and it's illustrated in detail on the website. And that detail that single bill is to eliminate federal corporate taxes. $1 trillion held overseas by domestic corporations will come here immediately, overnight. It's all done electronically.
Thank you.
Am I out of time?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Go to the website, you can read all about it.
Mr. Carter.
Congressman Ryan has done the American people a favor, at least putting on the table a marker, a specific proposal to cut spending by $5.1 trillion. That would be great, but it's over 10 years. Now let's think about that. We have a current federal spending of nearly $4 trillion in 1 year. He is proposing to cut $500 billion per year. That is a start, but that is all it is. What we need to do is to couple that overall strategy with what we did when I served in the Congress of the United States from the 7th District, and which got us to a balanced budget, and that is to use the power of the purse strings in the House of Representatives and deny this president, as we denied President Clinton, and refuse to pass all of his spending bills. That forced him to the table, and we got a balanced budget in 4 years.
So I think now we have a Twitter question.
We now have 2 Twitter questions. Before the debate started, we went into a room and everybody picked one question that they're going to get asked by Angela and I. Angela Diana Santos is the Executive Vice President of the Independent Republicans, and she has the first question.
Okay, this question is for Barry Loudermilk, and it is from @KeithHanks, who I believe is over there. Wave, Keith. Hi, Keith. In 2014, how do you define the American dream? How has it changed, and how can Congress improve it and/or hurt it?
Well, that's a great question. In fact, I was speaking to a group of college students recently and asked, how many of you believe in the next, your generation will actually be able to achieve the American dream? And very few raised their hands. In reality, it's the American dream isn't the way I defined it, it's not the way the government defines it, but the way you define it. Our founding fathers defined it as the pursuit of happiness. The government exists to protect your right to pursue happiness. Unfortunately, our government now has transitioned from a government of the people to a government over the people, and it tries to control everything we do. In fact, I saw recently someone campaigning for office said, Washington is out of control, and I disagree. Because they control our health care. They control our guns, they control our education, they control virtually every aspect of our lives, but they can't even seem to control their own checkbook. So what we need is less. Less Washington, less government, let the people define what is the American dream for them and allow them to achieve it. Thank you for the question, it was awesome.
All right, great. The next question is for Colonel Brzezinski. It is from @Chris Polera. How do you deal with border security, the 14 million illegal aliens already here, and still embrace the Hispanic community? #Hispanic Republican.
Well, Chris, that is a great question, and if you read ColonelLarry.com, every week I write an article, I wrote extensively, also on the Fulton County Republican Party on this very question. For our border, we need to fix the double layer 2006 and fence and make it permanent. Amnesty, no amnesty whatsoever. The message goes out as clear. You come to America, you come here through a proper immigration service. It's 5 to 7 years on average. Those that are here, they make sure that we have them verified. Those who are in our country, who are 18 to 26 males, follow our laws, you will register for the Selective Service Draft. Oh yes, you have been hidden in that fact that we, the people, you come here to the United States, you help us defend. But the Hispanic community, I say, you are very welcome. You are welcome. Verify, come out of the shadows, be part of the American dream, be part of the American ethic, and contribute to the American Social Security and Medicare system, as all of those do. Because as we give in America, we also expect responsibility of those who give back. So you're all welcome. all of us, we're all from immigrants except for Indians, and I will tell you that we will get this
Thank you.
immigration under control.
All right, I have the honor of asking the next question. And I think we start with Mr. Biden. Work our way down. I know you can't see me, but I'm down here, I promise. And my question is about everyone's favorite subject, and that is taxes. We love them, right? I looked at all of your web pages, and all of you talk about tax reform, and I think most of you talk specifically about the fair tax. And conservatives talk a lot about the fair tax. It's a big issue. But realistically, it's not going anywhere. It's not moving in Congress. It's not getting any traction. In fact, a lot of independent analysts have looked at the fair tax, like at the University of Virginia. There was a study from Money Magazine that raised serious questions about the implementation of the fair tax and about its future. So that being the case, is it time to admit fair tax is maybe not all it's cracked up to be and move on to more fertile areas of tax reform?
That's an excellent question, Dr. Swint. For starters, the American Tax Code is 74,000 pages long. It's 185 times bigger than it was when the 16th Amendment was adopted so many years ago. This is preposterous for us to continue this way. It completely flies in the face of any type of logic of how we can be able to spend more time growing our businesses, managing our finances, helping to support our families. Isn't that bad? Whether it's the fair tax, the flat tax, or the simple tax, it's better than what we have right now. If you ask me, I prefer the simple tax. Woo, because it eliminates the premium.
Plug it back in!
This is where you get to watch us tap dance.
Chris Polera, you got the walkie-talkie.
We got help on the way.
We can still hear.
Basically, conservatives love the fair tax, but it's not going anywhere. It doesn't seem to be getting any traction. There are serious questions from independent observers about the implementation of the fair tax. So is it time for conservatives to admit that it's not all cracked up to be and move on to more fertile areas of tax reform?
Good question. Our tax code is 74,000 pages long. It's 185 times bigger than it was when the 16th Amendment was adopted. Think about what that means to us when we go to file our taxes every year, and we've got April 15th just right around the corner. We have to have tax reform in this nation. It's essential. Whether it's the fair tax, the flat tax, or the simple tax, I believe that they're all fine alternatives to the tax system that we have now. For me, I prefer the simple tax. It doesn't have the rebate that the fair tax has.
Well, I stated earlier on that I believe the fair tax does have support, so I think the question needs to be challenged. I mentioned 73 in the House, and that's 113 Congress, and that's House of Representatives Bill 25. We had 73 co-sponsors, I stated earlier, 8 in the Senate. Only 10 for the flat tax. And here's the problem that we had, while alternatives say the flat tax. It doesn't tax your investment, or it taxes your expenditures, your income, but it doesn't go ahead and it doesn't do is your investment income. So those who are well-heeled, they benefit from the flat tax. The fair tax is across the board. Ladies and gentlemen, the fair tax promotes repeal of the only one for the 16th Amendment. How many here want the 16th Amendment to stand? Raise your hand. That shuts the door on whether or not the fair tax is dead. In the House of Representatives, we have that movement, ladies and gentlemen. And I will tell you that all the income, payroll, self-employment taxes, capital gains, gifts, taxes are eliminated. That's $431 billion by 90%, $388 billion. Ladies and gentlemen, the fair tax is fair. Any tax is better than we have right now. But anyone who tells you that they're going to move aside from the 16th Amendment is not going to represent you in Congress and get rid of the IRS and bring it down. We're looking at another capitulation before we get to the office. Congressman Rosinski will advocate the repeal of the 16th Amendment. And right now, until something comes along better, the fair tax is the one to push.
The first and foremost thing we have to do is eliminate the IRS. That is the most important aspect that interjects itself in our lives and our liberty, and I think everybody in here has faced that, and you've seen what's happened over the past several years. There's challenges with each one. The flat tax is the simplest to move over to. Just go to a 10% across the board flat tax, but the argument becomes, do we have certain deductions still? Can we deduct charitable contributions? Or what about your mortgage interest payments? Can we still deduct those? That argument's going to be there. The biggest problem with the flat tax is it still leaves in place the 16th Amendment, and it taxes you achieving the American dream. The fair tax is complex. It has so many moving parts, and it has a rebate that's involved with it. But the problem that we have with the fair tax is there's no transition plan. I mean, as a small business owner, I can't do a major changeover in my business without some kind of plan for transitioning. Now, I've met with the authors, the idea makers of the simple tax. And it's a brilliant idea. It simply transitions us immediately to a flat tax, repeals the 16th Amendment, goes to a national sales tax, and if the 16th Amendment is not ratified, the repeal isn't ratified, then we fall back to a flat tax.
Well, let me ask you this. Everybody who's a conservative is here, raise your hand. That's what I thought. So let's go ahead and do the poll right now. How many of y'all believe that we as conservatives should abandon the fair tax? Raise your hand. That's about what I thought. The fact of the matter is there are independent groups and there are independent groups. And I've learned this over a decade in public service. A lot of independent groups are funded by one organization or another that has a vested interest in the outcome of the study. And the fact of the matter is, the studies that were quoted by Professor Swint, the folks that were funding it had a vested interest in maintaining the status quo. The fair tax is the best possible alternative in the long run. In the short run, we've got to do other things until we can repeal the 16th Amendment. That's absolutely true. But we need to get in there and start to come up with a tax system that, instead of deterring economic growth, galvanizes and increases economic growth. The first thing we need to do is start dropping the tax rates down, in particular dealing with the corporate tax rate. We literally have trillions of dollars sitting offshore right now because the corporations are not prepared to bring it back to the United States at our present very high tax rate. You want an incentive plan in which we don't have to borrow money? Bring that money back underneath a restructured corporate tax plan. In addition to that, we need to bring everyone's tax rates down in order to spur growth. Then we need to start looking at the flat tax, and then finally, and someone did mention it, and I do agree with them, we don't go to the fair tax until we repeal the constitutional limit dealing with the IRS. But those are steps that need to be taken, and we need to start taking them now, because the status quo is unacceptable.
I endorse my fellow representative people's comments about the flat tax and the fair tax and this tax and that tax. The problem we have, as I said before, is that our government has gone insane and they do not want to change the tax code. The reason is they like to control the public. I'm a big believer in liberty, and I'm a big believer in this flag and what it represents. The key is to reduce taxes and increase our GDP. If we do not increase our GDP, we are in some serious trouble. What I almost finished the last time that fits in right with this conversation is that if we eliminate the corporate taxes completely, federal corporate taxes completely, trillions of dollars of foreign corporations' money will come here with the corporations. So why do you care? Very simply, they won't be taxed on their profits, which means they have to invest that money. If foreign corporations come here, they will build factories and new facilities, providing an enormous increase in domestic employment. And I foresee that if we do eliminate the federal corporate taxes, ladies and gentlemen, we will have more jobs than people to fill them. Incomes will go up, and the chronic unemployment problem we have will go away completely. On NBC News the other night, it said that Brian Williams said that only 1 in 9 American workers who are unemployed will ever get a full-time job again.
Thank you.
That's a disgrace.
President Reagan, if he were here this evening, would say in answer to that question, the same answer that as a Reagan conservative I give. Not only no, but heck no. We should never, ever, ever give up on what is right, and we try to do what is right for America. Now, we all know that the IRS is bad. It is bad evil. And we also know that the most powerful force in the universe is the force of the status quo. It is difficult to move a seemingly immovable object. It is difficult to get rid of the income tax. It is difficult to get rid of withholding. But if we simply lie down and say, oh, the opponents of the fair tax have beat us down and it's no longer viable, then they win. I refuse to let the liberals win. I refuse to let the status quo win. We must continue, as we did back in the 1990s, to continue to press forward from the grassroots on up. It's not going to come from the top down. It comes from we, the people, to keep the pressure on Washington, to keep the pressure on the bureaucrats, and we will get there.
Thank you. And now we will have 2 more questions from Twitter.
This question is for Tricia Pridemore, and she drew the lucky number because this is arguably the most important question that any of you will have to answer tonight. This is from @Scott23, which is Representative Scott Turner. Warm Coke or cold Pepsi? Or what 3 things would you cut to move toward a balanced budget? I'm more interested in your answer to the first question though.
I'm going to answer both. Warm Coke, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Over
Support the domestic company, Coca-Cola.
I would start by looking at 3 federal agencies. I would look at the EPA, the Department of Energy, and the Department of Education. I would also look at the 22 labor programs through the United States Department of Labor that make up a section of workforce development spending in our country. As our state's former executive director of the Governor's Office of Workforce Development, I have seen it, I have lived it, I have cut government waste, and it can be done.
The next question is for Alan Levine. It is from R.O. Harvey 1, which is Rosie Harvey, and Republican. What are your thoughts on congressional term limits? Will you have a self-imposed term limit?
I'll answer the second part of the question first. That is 8 years. I commit that I will only, if I'm elected, I'll only serve in the House of Representatives for 8 years. And also, because I'm 64, you know that that's the truth, because I'll be in my mid-70s. And if you get older, you kind of know that eventually there is an end game. So I'm determined, because I'm a naturalized, very proud naturalized American citizen who loves this flag, that I want to fix this country, and I will, in 8 years, and that's it. Second part of the question, or the first part of the question, is now term limits. I'm a big supporter of term limits, but I'm going to be the heretic in this instance. Because of the complexity to try and get a term limits amendment passed, which has been promulgated for decades, I doubt that this will be anything more than hyperbole. So I have a practical solution, and the practical solution will serve in place of the term limits amendment. And it's really simple. If you're in the House of Representatives and you've been there for 8 years, 4 terms, or in the Senate 2 terms, or 12 years, and you run again, you lose your pension. It's really simple. Washington is driven by money. Our elected congressmen and women, all they're interested in is money. Once you're on this side of the microphone, you get to understand what's going on, really understand what's going on in Washington, and the money, which is the basis of all decisions. So if you eliminate their pensions, you will get them to quit. And that would be a self-imposed term limits amendment. Thank you.
So, and for this question, we will start with Mr. Barr and work our way to Ms. Pridemore. By all accounts, we're in the midst of a constitutional crisis. The reason we're in the midst of a constitutional crisis is we have an imperial president who shows no regard for the boundaries and the separation of powers. As an individual member of Congress, what would you do to serve as a check against the uncontrolled power being exercised by President Obama?
Well, as the House of Representatives member who first called for the impeachment of President Clinton, I have a little familiarity with how to stop a president run amok. There are in fact several specific steps that as a member of the House of Representatives you can take. First of all, the president cannot spend one dime for the running of the White House or anybody working there or any of the commissions without having funds appropriated by law from the Congress of the United States. That starts in the House. And when a president signs an executive order that goes beyond his authority, which we have seen this president do time and time again, it is time for the House of Representatives to attach a rider to the White House Appropriations Bill denying any money can be spent for that particular order. They can do the same thing for any particular action by any department of the government or any agency or individual in the government. That will do one of two things. It will either force the president to sign it because he needs that spending bill, or it forces him to do what we did with President Clinton. It forces him to come to the table and talk about these issues on our terms. We have that power in the House. We need to define the rules of the playing field and actually hold this president accountable and stop him through the power of the purse strings.
The key problem we have with President Obama is that he's expanding executive power. And the real problem is that the next president will inherit that same level of executive power, and that president will start to get involved in mission creep based on what the House of Representatives and the Senate let him or her do. You have to form a caucus. Caucus is a group of representatives who are kind of middle of the road, both on the Democratic side and on the Republican side. And you have to work as a bloc to stop certain bills from passing. If you can stop financial bills from passing, it will help check the ability of the White House and the president to run the country by executive fiat. So, and that needs a cleaning of the House. We have to help the current members of Congress to retire. So we need new blood in Congress, and we need to turn over, as the founding fathers said, the members of Congress, they do what they need to do and then they leave. At the moment, they do what they want to do and they stay, and it's all wrong. Thank you.
Well, first off, a couple things I think I've already started to do in order to pull back on the imperial presidency. One is to start to pull back on Obamacare. See my good friend Scott Turner over here. He and I co-sponsored a bill this year called HB 707. What it simply does is it takes on Obamacare. It says the state of Georgia will not be a participant in this economic train wreck. We got that passed, so we sent a message to Washington to take back our country and to start pulling back on President Obama's overreach. The second thing we did this year in the Georgia House and the Georgia Senate is that we passed that constitutional convention that I called for, that will call for a balanced budget. The best way to start to curtail someone from overreach is to start to limit how much they can spend. Right now, the federal government has a blank check. We need to put an end to that. The third thing we need to do, and as a congressman, when I first get elected, I'm going to insist upon, is to make sure that, provided that we have still a majority in the United States House, that no bill goes to the floor of the House without a majority of the Republican caucus supporting it. That way we can start to curtail the over excessive actions that we've seen taking place even when we have a Republican Congress. The fourth thing that we need to be doing is making sure that in addition to keeping a Republican in this seat, which is going to be easy, we need to make sure that we take the United States Senate. Now, my friend over here mentioned his work in the 1990s, and he's absolutely right. However, we had a majority of the U.S. Senate as well. Those are the 4 things that we need to be working on immediately. Thank you all very much.
About 3 weeks ago, I got a call from the New York Times, and the reporter said, we want to fly down, if you're having an event, we want to come and visit one of your events. We hear you got a lot of momentum in your campaign, and you've been endorsed by most of the conservative groups throughout the United States. And we want to come down and visit you while you're having an event. And the whole thing that you want to interview us about was this very subject matter here about the imperial presidency. And after I sat down and did the interview, I found out just the other day that the RNC actually read that article and said, this is the talking points that we're going to send out through all Republican candidates. And that originated right here. Look, there's 3 things that have to happen. One, we created this storm. Congress created a perfect storm because you can't control the other branches if you don't even have a budget. For years, we didn't even have a budget. We were giving a blank check to the president. We must have a budget, and we must have the courage to stand up and exert the constitutional authority of the legislative branch. And third, we have to have leadership that has the courage to stand up against the President of the United States when he violates his constitutional authority, and not give him a blank check and just allow him to borrow money without any control, as we just recently did. We expanded the debt ceiling without any control. We have to have courageous and strong leadership, even in our own party, who will stand up and who will exercise the constitutional authority of Congress.
Well, this accentuates the issue. We have a leadership problem, ladies and gentlemen. We have a leadership problem. Congress has the ability to overturn executive orders. Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution requires the President to, quote, take care of the laws and faithfully execute them. We have a leadership problem. If Congress had 2/3 override executive orders, they're costing us a great deal of money. Whether it's our energy that you pay at the gas pump on 7-year moratorium off the East Coast or on home oil, or whether it is your taxes to not get through a fair tax or an equitable tax. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the will of this Congress. It is a failed Congress, it is a failed leadership, and it is full of career-minded individuals. When you have someone who says that they bought Obamacare and supports it on the Affordable Care Act, 57 years in the Congress, and says, to control the people, Mr. Dingell, it's time to go home. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the will. Do not be fooled. What we need is leadership and confidence. And we can take this back, and we can turn back the imperial presidency.
Thank you.
There are 3 things that I can do, and one that you can especially help me with. First and foremost, we have to have a balanced budget in this nation. We cannot go on continuing to spend over $17 trillion in the future, borrowing money that we simply may never be able to afford to repay. The second of which is we need to use the power of the House committee structure to call in the department heads and call in those agency executives, those bureaucrats, and make them answer for the policies and procedures that they're passing off as laws. Laws are made by the legislative branch, they're enacted by the executive branch, and we need to stand firm on that. And the third thing is something you can especially help me with. There are 6, and some say 8, very competitive seats in the United States Senate this year. I say that for the final 2 years of President Barack Obama's final term, we need to make sure that Republicans hold not only the House with conservatives, but also the United States Senate as well.
And now we have the final 2 Twitter questions.
This is for Representative Lindsay from @Sarah N. Beck. How do you feel about foreign aid, and what are your recommendations for reform?
First off, I kind of like Mary's question. Can I trade right now? But seriously, anytime that we sort of look to foreign aid, we need to be looking at it from the prism of what is in the best interest of the American people. We need to recognize that we live in a dangerous world, and some foreign aid is going to be necessary, particularly to strong allies like Israel. Israel is surrounded by enemies. Israel is standing up and doing a lot of our dirty work in the Middle East, and we need to stand with Israel and countries like that who are firm allies of ours. and make sure that they have the resources that they need to stand up to folks that want to, quite frankly, kill us. So we need to understand that. The second thing, however, toward down the road, is that we have to understand, getting back to balancing the budget, is that we need to be making sure that there are no sacred cows. Foreign aid, just like every other aspect of the U.S. government spending, has to be looked at and scrutinized closely, and if necessary, cut in certain areas so that we can bring back a balanced budget and revitalize our own economy. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is for Bob Barr from @W Solomon. What is the most important thing you believe Congress can do to stimulate the economy and create jobs?
On the global level, strategically, we need to get the heck out of the way. We need to reduce the regulatory burdens, reduce the tax burdens, get the federal budget balanced so that we create certainty instead of the uncertainty that is holding back our economy right now. We also need to do everything we can to ensure energy dependency, which we are moving toward as a result of the tremendous technology that we've seen in the last few years with regard to shale oil exploration. Specifically, though, as a member of Congress, there are legislative proposals that we need to champion and make sure we get through, such as the Rand Paul bill in the Senate with its counterpart in the House, the REINS Act, R-E-I-N-S, which will force an administration to come to the Congress and get approval for any regulatory burden that exceeds a certain amount. $100 million probably ought to be lower, but I'll take that over what we now have. So the Congress, once again, forces an administration to come to the Congress, the House of the people, and make sure that those regulatory burdens and those tax burdens do not continue to mount and hold down our economy.
Okay, for this next question, we're starting with Mr. Loudermilk and moving to his right. We'll come back to the last two candidates. And it's about immigration. Immigration policy is controversial for Republicans in 2014. Some Republicans have advocated comprehensive immigration reform, advocating a pathway to citizenship. Recognizing the importance of the Latino vote in Georgia and nationally in the future, what's your position on this controversial area?
Well, it's interesting, that comes up a lot throughout the campaign, and it always amazes me as a legislator serving 9 years in the State House and State Senate. We always want to create new laws, but we're not even enforcing the ones we have on the books. And the first thing we need to do is secure our border. It's a national security issue. It truly is dangerous. I spent 6 days on the border back in 2006 with a Border Patrol agent. When we were looking at doing immigration reform here in Georgia, we decided, a group of us legislators, 3 of us went down and we spent a week on the border. And we saw how dangerous it was. I've also been down to South Georgia to visit with the farmers and seen the challenges that they face with the guest visa or the work visa program. So we need to secure the border. We need to fix the legal immigration system. It now takes between 10 and 15 years and $12,000 to $15,000 for someone to legally immigrate into the United States. And that needs to be reformed and fixed. And we need to have a usable work visa program that not only will allow people to come in and work, because quite frankly, we've created an environment in our society where we pay people more to sit at home and not work than actually go out and work. So it leaves a lot of our employers with a situation where they have to bring in immigrant employees. And so it needs to work, not only to allow them to come in, but be able to track them and know when it's time for them to leave and that they're taken back to the border to go home.
I appreciate the question, and I appreciate folks that have gone to the border. I too have gone to the border. The difference is I came back from the border and co-sponsored HB 87, which was one of the toughest anti-illegal immigration bills in the country that Georgia passed in 2011. And I was part of the House leadership, and I was a co-sponsor of that bill to get that through. Bottom line, number one, secure the border. No nation can long survive without a secure border. Number two, no amnesty. It's contrary to the rule of law. It's unfair to those folks that are waiting patiently in line to come here legally. And number three, it won't work. The last time we tried it was in 1986, when we only had 3 million people here illegally. Now we have over 11. That's the official number. It should be higher. Number three thing that we need to do is break the issue down. There's a difference between a comprehensive bill and a grab bag bill. A grab bag bill is we take different issues and throw it into one bag and hope you can get it passed. Immigration is in fact a series of smaller issues that need to be looked at separately. We need to be taking a look at who's here legally, who overstayed their visa, who wants to come here that has skills that will benefit the United States, who can come here and work in particular industries where we have shortages. The bottom line is, underneath any proposed immigration bill, we ought to have one simple rule. What is in the best interest of the American people?
I used to live in California. 51% of the California population is Latino. It's a Democratic state. If the Republican Party does not embrace the immigrants and the Latin vote, then we can start losing elections. It will be a disaster. We must embrace our Latin American citizens. When I lived in San Diego, I was in the insurance business, and one of my clients was a Border Patrol agent, and he took me out in his cruiser. We went up in the hill at midnight on the border of Tijuana, and he gave me his night vision binoculars. He said, "Look at that ridge line." And I looked, and it looked like a Korean War movie. You could see hundreds of people coming across the ridge from Mexico. These were economic migrants. Most of them are hard workers, and they came here to make money to send back to wherever they came from, Mexico or Central America. Australia has the same problem. They have boat migrants from Indonesia. Saudi Arabia has the same problems. They built a wall with Yemen, and they're still coming across from Yemen into Saudi Arabia. Spain has the same problem. They're coming across the Mediterranean into Spain. These people are economic migrants. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to tell you the truth, which is we would never stop people coming here from overseas and working illegally, because these are economic migrants. If we actually controlled our borders, which we don't, we wouldn't see all the drugs we get coming over the border. A massive increase in the volume of drugs. All we're doing is pushing out the migrants into the desert. They will come over here, and we need to embrace and figure out a good solution. And I think we can do this. Thank you.
There are two myths lurking in that question. One is that Hispanics in this country will necessarily vote for Democrats simply because Democrats believe in amnesty and a path to citizenship. The other myth is that Hispanics will not vote for Republicans if we say we believe in the rule of law, and that means protecting our border and fighting illegal immigration. The vast majority of Hispanics in this country believe in the rule of law just as we in this room do. And they want to make sure that the opportunities available to them are the opportunities that aren't taken away by illegal aliens coming into this country. Very simply, one of the things we need to do is simply enforce the laws that are on the books and demand that this administration, which has ordered United States attorneys and immigration officials not to enforce the laws of this land, not to take into custody, and not to deport those who are arrested in this country and who are here unlawfully. We need to do that, and we, the people, need to insist on it and do what Neil Warren, for example, is doing here in Cobb County, and that is making sure that those who are in this country unlawfully and violate the law are detained and deported.
I don't believe that Hispanics necessarily would not vote Republican. They believe in the rule of law. They believe in following laws. I'm very honored to have friends that have led a Hispanic outreach coalition for our campaign. I know Lysandro is here someplace. I can't see him at the moment, but there he is. Hey, guys. And they help us really bring Hispanics into the fold of our campaign so we can talk about these issues in a really free and open and positive dialogue. For starters, we have to secure our borders. It's fundamental. We've got to secure not only our southern border, but also our northern border and our ports. At the end of the day, amnesty is not the answer. Visa reform really and truly is. We are the only Western civilization that gives visas. 83% of them are awarded simply for family reunification, while 17% are only rewarded for work visas. We have a visa challenge in our country, and I think that that's the kind of work that I'm going to do as your member of Congress, roll up my sleeves and solve these problems, but do it in a positive, uplifting way. I think that Hispanics are right at home in the Republican Party.
Well, I think Chris Bear took us down this road with a tweeter, and I think I set the stage for the answers. Secure the border, complete the double-layer fence, no amnesty. End the idea of the anchor baby and the chain migration. Those that are here, anchor babies are U.S. citizens. And once we get to Congress and we do a fundamental law change, then we will have those who are here to be certified that they're in the process, they're in America, and they become part of the system. Look, all Americans favor immigration. What we have is that each other, we're being presented with something that can be easily fixed. I presented to you an idea of 1917 selective service. Bring them out of the shadows. If they're here, it's a pathway to citizenship. And if you have a home, someone's providing for you, you're providing for yourself, why not make them part of the system? But if you're not part of the system, you can be here to do crime, then you go home. This is how we need to do it by leadership, not by sound bites. We need to take the laws we got and articulate those laws. And that's what you expect of your congressman. And I will tell you that Congressman Rosinski will deliver on immigration reform. We will fix this problem, and we will make those that are here either part of the American system, through our system, or we will ask them if where they came from is any better than here. But you have to defend America and be part of the solution.
Thank you. And I want to thank all of our candidates for doing a fantastic job of largely staying within the time for announcement. Trust me, that's easier said than done. And now we will move to our closing statements, and we'll start with Mr. Barr and work our way back over toward Ms. Pradman. Mr. Barr?
You know, contrary to one of the rules or myths of politics that all politics is local, it ain't so. All politics is not local. Members of Congress take an oath of office, as I've taken 4 times as your representative from the 7th District, as your United States Attorney under Presidents Reagan and Bush, and earlier in my career as a CIA official. Those oaths mean something. Those oaths need action to back them up. And the action as a member of Congress, Bob Barr, you've seen. You've seen Bob Barr up there fighting against an imperial presidency and leading the impeachment. You've seen Bob Barr up there helping to pass the first balanced budget in 4 decades at the same time as we cut taxes and reformed welfare. You've seen Bob Barr lead the effort in the House of Representatives to repeal the Clinton gun ban, to protect our civil liberties, the right to keep and bear arms. You have seen Bob Barr fight for the National Cemetery here in the 11th District would not be there had not I and other members years ago began the process to make sure that we have a final resting place in North Georgia for our veterans and for their families. These are actual accomplishments. It's not talk, it's action. That's what we need in Washington. That is the only way that we will slow down the juggernaut of big government and the liberals up there. Doesn't come through talk, doesn't come through just saying, oh, I'm going to do this when I get there. It doesn't come from simply saying, oh, I'm going to introduce a bunch of bills. Introducing a bill is the easiest thing in the world. You just wrap it up and you take it down to the clerk of the House. The real hard work is getting those bills passed. The real hard work is getting those appropriations limitations on an administration, so that you can come home and do more than simply talk about it. You can point, as I do this evening, in asking for your vote, to an actual record of moving our conservative agenda forward. We have begun the process. We did it before. We can do it again. Send Bob Barr to the Congress and let me finish the job.
Congress.com and read some of the 200 articles that I've written. I believe in full disclosure before the fact. I will not tell you, I won't look at surveys of what you want to hear. And then tell you that is what I believe in, just to get voted in. Because once you're voted in, it's very difficult to vote out an incumbent. If Phil Gingrey was running again, you wouldn't see the people here on this podium because they know they would lose. An open seat is the only opportunity that, in many instances, is for a candidate to actually win. As I said, I have three main topics, three bills that I want to pass. I didn't touch the third, but I will in a second. The first one was to eliminate federal corporate taxes. It's a really dry topic, but it will create jobs, full employment for American citizens, and it will lower taxes. On NBC News, as I mentioned, that only 1 in 9 people at the moment are expected to ever get a full-time job. They also said, Brian Williams also said something which was amazing to me, that 36% of American family of workers only have $1,000 in their bank, in the bank accounts. That's a horrible statistic. They're living week to week, month to month. What I want to do, of course, is to get Congress people to resign after a fixed amount of years, or they'll lose their pension, so they will. We need fresh blood in Congress. And we also need another bill to change the campaign finance laws, which is another very dry topic, but really the cornerstone of how our system works. And what I propose is that after each election cycle, any campaign money left over is given to charity. At the moment, I'm out of time, but please read it on the website, because these are really important topics. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Once again, I want to thank y'all for coming, and I want to earn your vote. As I mentioned at the very beginning, I am a Georgia conservative who gets the job done. And we need to send that kind of person to Washington. The best way to tell where someone is going is to see where they've been. In the Georgia House, I passed a proposed constitutional convention to call for a balanced budget amendment. In the Georgia House, as part of the House leadership, I balanced the budget during the darkest times in our economic history since the Great Depression. In the Georgia House, I passed a bill this year that expands the right of gun owners here in Georgia. In the Georgia House, I took on Medicaid fraud and passed one of the toughest laws in the country dealing with Medicaid fraud that is already, based on a bill I passed in 2007, brought back to the state of Georgia almost $160 million that was been fraudulently taken from us as taxpayers. I have, on issue after issue after issue, including illegal immigration, which I mentioned before, I've taken on these tough issues in Georgia. I'm prepared to go to Washington to take them on there. We have got to send people to Washington that take being a legislator seriously, that will walk into a room, roll up their sleeves, and get the job done. As a Georgia conservative who gets the job done, I've done it and I know how to do it. In conclusion, I have proven through my years in public service to have the patience to listen, to have the strength to lead, to have the wisdom to know how to negotiate without compromising my principles, and most importantly, the courage to stay the course when times get tough. That's the kind of legislator I've been here in Georgia. That's the type of U.S. Congressman I'll be for you in Washington. Thank you and God bless you.
Growing up here in Georgia, my parents instilled a set of values in me that we have passed on to our children. Those values are put God first, serve others before yourself, and that standing for what is right isn't always easy, but it is always right. My dad was a medic in World War II, and he saw the absolute worst of what humans can do to one another. But he always stayed positive because he had his eyes upon his cause, not his circumstances. My dad lived those values every day. And one thing he used to tell me, his son, never complain. Complaining does nothing. If there's something you don't like, you have two choices. One, you can do something to change the situation, or just accept it as inevitable and go on with your life. In 2004, I saw that my state government was going in the wrong direction, so I took my dad's advice, and And I took my experience as a husband and a father and a veteran, an employee and an employer as a small business owner to the state capitol, where I became known as one of the foremost conservative leaders in Georgia because of my consistent stance on faith, family, and freedom. Because of that consistent stance, I have received the endorsement of most every major conservative organization in America. Family Research Council, Concerned Women of America, Restore Our Republic, Madison Project. And because of my service as a veteran and knowing the value of a strong national defense, we received the endorsement of the National Defense Pact. Most recently, FreedomWorks announced that I was one of the top 5 conservative candidates in the nation, and Senate Conservatives Fund named me the #2 candidate running for the House in the entire nation. As of today, we're the most endorsed candidate running for office across the nation. Why? Because I have consistently stood for those values of faith, family, and freedom. This is the most critical election in the history of our nation. Our children don't see that they have a future, but it's up to us to ensure that they have a future that is free, safe, and full of opportunity. I need your help. I need your vote. www.standwithbarry.com. God bless you, and thank you very much.
Choice in this election. It's not working, you change what's not working. Ladies and gentlemen, my career has been spent across the table working with nation states. I have sworn to the Constitution on every rank that I've held. And I have seen other parts of the world where the Second Amendment rights, for example, don't exist. And I don't want to see that here for my family or for my grandchild or for yours. Character does have fingerprints. Oh yes. It tells you where you've been. And you have the opportunity to look back on those. Look back on those, whether they're endorsements, or whether they're transgressions, or whether it's misstatements. Look back and check. Ladies and gentlemen, to the folks that are in this room and those who are not, to the seniors, to the students, to the mothers and fathers who have their children and relatives deployed across America. Not only did I do the 10-point plan, read through the VA, there is no one more suited to help you to take care of those that need to be taken care of, to fill our promise to the veterans. I will be the military veterans families champion. And I guarantee you, under the Article 1, we will make sure that Congress does its job. Under Article 8, we will make sure that when we go to our nation's wars, that they are just, and we will make sure we don't overstay our welcome in liberating those who requested our help. I ask for your support, ColonelLarry.com, and I pledge to you this. I will not accept congressional retirement. They will not do that up here. I will self-term myself limits, and I pledge to you that what you've been looking for 2 to 4 to 6 years is standing before you. I am your statesman. I want to serve. I am Colonel Larry Rosinski. I stand before you again, and I ask for your help. Pull the lever. Help is on the way.
Time to come this evening. The Final Four is on. The Braves are playing the Nats. I think they've been at it now for about an hour and a half. The fact that you would make the time to come out, learn about the candidates, and engage in this process says a lot about you. It says a lot about Georgia's 11th Congressional District. Thanks to the moderators. Thanks to the Twitter questions. Follow me on Twitter, @TPrideMore. Just this week, our campaign was endorsed by the Cobb County Fraternal Order of Police. It is an honor to stand proud with our first responders, not only here in Cobb, but all over the district, and I'm very grateful for their support. We were also endorsed by Susan B. Anthony List for my pro-life position. Pro-life is not only the corner of our republic, but it's also the corner of my family. But most of all, it's good to be home this evening in Cobb County. Cobb is my home. It's where I graduated from Kennesaw State University. Go Owls! It's where my husband and high school sweetheart sat on our driveway. We sketched out an idea for a business. We started it from the guest room. We grew it. It became a successful business. And then by the grace of God, we were required. We achieved the American dream. It's a blessing. But see, not all good ideas come from inside of a dome. Good ideas to lead our country, they don't have to come from inside of a dome. Whether it be in Atlanta or Washington, D.C., good ideas can come from boardrooms, cubicles, kitchen tables. I want to not only represent you in Congress, but most of all, I want to serve you. This is a fantastic part of the country to be from. This is a fantastic part of the country to call home. And we have many things to be blessed for. I ask for your vote May the 20th. Send some real-world experience to Washington, D.C. Send a fresh perspective. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
I know you just did it, but another round of applause for these fantastic guests. Just a moment.